From last night's video, you've noticed that we had two types of sequences. So we're going to summarize some key ideas about arithmetic and geometric sequences. We're first going to start with arithmetic. A first key idea is the pattern that you have found when dealing with these types of sequences. To find the pattern, we call that our common difference. To calculate the common difference, you're going to take your next term and subtract it from your previous term. We call this the D value. There are two types of formulas for arithmetic sequences. The first is the recursive formula. The formula for this is you have a sub 1 equaling. This represents the first term in your sequence. Underneath a sub 1, we're going to call it a sub n, and that will equal a sub n minus 1 plus d. N represents the term number, and a sub n equals the previous term value. Or we can think about from last week, a sub n would be like our output value that we got from our previous input. Here's some examples of how the recursive formula works. Let's say you have 11 plus 3. We're going to call 11 the first term. We're adding 3 to it, and so we get 14. This would be your second term. So to find your third term, you're going to take your second term, which is 14, and add 3 to it to get 17. So here's your second, and here's your third. Okay, so second is the previous term, so that's at a sub n minus 1. So if we want to find the fourth term, we take our third term, which is 17, add 3 to it, and get 20. So we use our a sub n, which would be our third term, add our common difference in order to get the fourth term. So when using recursive, you have to know the term previous to the one you're looking for. The second type of formula for arithmetic is your explicit formula. And the explicit formula is a sub n equaling a sub 1 plus n minus 1 times d. A sub n equals your term number. A sub 1 is your first term in your sequence. N again is your term number, and D is your common difference. So again, with arithmetic sequences, you have the explicit formula, you have this recursive formula, and to find if it's arithmetic, you have to have a common difference, and that can be found by taking your next term and minusing the previous. The next type of sequences that you looked at is geometric. Okay, and with geometric sequences, we have a pattern. And this pattern is called the common ratio. To find the common ratio, you're going to take your next term and divide it by your previous term. We call this the R value. Again, there are two types of formulas. The first is the recursive. The recursive formula for a geometric sequence is a sub n equaling a sub n minus 1 times r. N is your term number. A sub n minus 1 is your previous term value. And R is your common ratio. So here's an example of how we would use this. So let's say we have 2 times 3. 2 is going to be your first term. 3 is going to be your common ratio, and you get 6, which would be your second term. So in order to find the third term, you have to use your second term, which is 6, and times it by 3, times it by 3, and you're going to get 18. So here's your second term, 3 is your common ratio, and you end up with your third term. So one more time, if I want to find the fourth term, I have to use my third term, which is 18, times it by the common ratio, and get 54, which would be my fourth term. That's your recursive. As well as recursive with geometric, your second formula that you have is your explicit. And your explicit formula says a sub n equals a sub 1 times r raised to the power of n minus 1. N is your term number. A sub 1 is your first term. And in your exponent, n is your term number. R is your base of your exponent, and that is your common ratio.